Want to know my top tips for what topics will be in the ATX exam? Then stay tuned. In terms of VAT, I'd be looking very closely at how we treat imports and exports. Also in VAT, the option to tax is definitely a key area to make sure that you are comfortable with. Remember, this is where we turn an exempt supply into a taxable supply. Sticking with VAT, also make sure you are comfortable with the capital goods scheme, the theory behind it, and also those adjustment formula. Every student's favourite, pensions. Make sure you look at occupational pension schemes and also personal pension schemes and the impact that these have on somebody's income tax computation. And don't forget to think about the employer's point of view as well. Often in section A, we have somebody who's at a crossroads in their business and are trying to make a business decision that you have to help them with. One of the scenarios we might see is somebody who is choosing whether to take on somebody as a partner in their business or an employee. So you need to make sure you're really comfortable with your income tax computations. Another common scenario then, sole trader versus company. Should somebody remain as a sole trader or should they incorporate their business? How will they get their money out of that business? Are they going to take a dividend? Are they going to take a salary? Are they going to pay themselves a bonus? Does it make any difference? Think about the different tax rates that apply depending on whether you're an employee versus being a sole trader of an unincorporated business. Let's think about companies now. Double tax relief. Very common to see this in a company's question where we have some overseas source of tax and also that is being taxed in the UK as well. If there's no mention of there being a double tax treaty, then you need to be applying double tax relief. Make sure you know about close companies and the impact that them making a loan to a participator or giving a benefit to a participator has. Very important. And remember, there's different perspectives to this. There's the company's perspective and there's also the perspective of the actual recipient of the loan or benefit as well. I would make sure I'm really comfortable with permanent establishments, so a branch or an office or a factory overseas, and how that could potentially be taxed in the UK and overseas, and what we could do to make sure that it doesn't get taxed in the UK and overseas. And even if it does, can we apply double tax relief in order to reduce the tax overall that we pay? Make sure you know the conditions for what a permanent establishment is, and please, please, please remember, it's not a company. It does not have a separate legal entity. Sticking with companies and overseas issues, make sure you understand what a controlled foreign company is and the exemptions that apply. Commonly comes up, very narrative in nature, should be really easy for you to put down some very relevant points, but always make sure that you're applying it to the question in hand. Let's think about inheritance tax now. You need to be comfortable with computations. You're unlikely to have to do a computation all the way from the beginning through to the end, but you need to be able to jump in wherever the question puts you. So that might be that somebody's just died and you're having to deal with their death estate. It might be that they made some gifts during their lifetime and you're having to go back and recalculate them. Make sure you know your pro forma. Make sure you know where the reliefs sit in that pro forma as well. Income tax, really, really examinable. Lots of that knowledge comes from your previous tax studies. There's lots of very, very easy marks to pick up in the exam on an income tax computation. So make sure you know the pro forma really well. Make sure that you're comfortable with how to tax different sources of income. And remember, you've got stuff in your tax tables to help you. You don't need to remember all the rates and thresholds. Please check the tax tables in your exam and don't rely on your memory alone. One of the areas from previous tax studies that students probably forgotten the most about is employment benefits. There are lots of different employment benefits, such as providing accommodation for your employee or giving them a beneficial loan or company cars. Make sure you know the rules for each of these. If they come up, they're not going to be worth a huge number of marks, but these should be easy marks for you to pick up in the exam. It's all assumed knowledge, so make sure you go back and look at those areas again. Now, one area that covers companies and individuals is trading losses. Make sure that you understand the rules for what you can do, the options, whether you can carry forward, set it off in the current year, carry back, and what special situations we have for certain uses of the trading loss as well, such as where we've got an unincorporated business that makes a loss in the first 4 years of its trade, and it's got special carry back rules where it can set those losses off 3 years back, and also against any other income like employment income that person might have. Really important. Terminal loss relief rules as well. I'd make sure I really know those if you see a business that is ceasing trading, whether that be a company or an unincorporated business, and it's got losses, you should be thinking about terminal loss relief. One thing we know for sure is going to be in your exam, it's going to be some overseas issues somewhere in there. Make sure you know your individual's residence and domicile rules. For capital gains tax and income tax, they're very similar. Inheritance tax has some slight differences for deemed domicile. Make sure you know those very comfortably. It is easy to get yourself tied up in knots with these rules, so you need to do lots of question practice on this area. Highly examinable as well is CGT reliefs. There are lots of them. They sound quite similar. You want to make sure that you understand what actual transactions each CGT relief applies to, so you can spot them quickly in the exam. The examiner is not necessarily going to be nice and tell you which ones to consider, but they might. So do watch out for any hints and steers in the question as well on which ones are relevant or not relevant to the situation. Shares, students' favourite, comes up in lots of different areas, capital gains tax, income tax, in terms of relief that you can get for reinvesting into certain types of shares. So you need to make sure you're understanding how these are taxed. Also think about it from a company's perspective in terms of selling the shares in a business or selling the assets of the business as well. Takeovers, students get really muddled with takeover computations. Those are assumed knowledge from TX, but it's probably not an area that a lot of TX students will have looked at particularly. So make sure you go and look at takeovers again. Finally, I just want to say a big good luck to you. You've come this far, don't give up, do your best in the exam. If you need any more last minute tips, please make sure to hit the subscribe button for any newly released videos, have a look at the other options that are available, and also please drop a comment below this video and let me know how you get on with your exam.